Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello to all SBR students. Hussain Qazi here. Welcome back to another episode of SBR Power Ups. With this session, I will give you the guidance how to save your 20 marks. How to save your SBR 20 marks. Yes, with this session, I will give you the guidance how to attempt question number 2, which includes the topic of ethics. Very specifically, the agenda of this session based on 2 parts. Number 1, with this session, we will cover question number 2 of pre-mock December 2024, the question name Devonald Company. And number 2, at the end of the session, I will give you some important exam material that's called SBR Easy 20 marks. With this material of SBR Easy 20 marks, you will easily be able to handle the question number 2 of SBR. So let's start this session with question number 1, with agenda number 1, that's a question Devonald. This is the question of SBR pre-December 24 mock exam. But wait a minute. Before starting the question, I wanted to give you a very important guidance, which is called Mastering SBR Exam Questions. Students, I am giving you the guidance. What is the right way or right strategy to attempt any of the SBR questions during exam? And I strongly suggest you have to practice your exam question in this way. And the way is called the success way. If you really wanted to become mastering SBR exam questions and follow my instructions, which is called the success way, the rule is 2080. The rule is 2080. You have to follow this instruction to attempt any of the SBR question, including the question number 2 as well. The rule 2080, what does that mean? Rule 2080 means make sure that you have to invest 20% time for the planning of the question. If you really wanted to get success of the exam, you have to invest 20% time for the planning. 20% time for the planning. That's a key point. 20% time of the planning includes number 1. The first rule is about reading. And what is the right way to read any question? That's called 1, 2, 3. What is this 1, 2, 3? I will tell you. Don't worry. Number 2, with that particular 20%, make sure you have properly read the requirement. You have already understood all the content, all the context, all the content and the requirement. And number 3, before attacking, make sure you have identified the key points. That is called brainstorming. Before attacking, you have to plan your points. That's a very important point. Without planning, if you attack with the question, the result becomes bounce back, nothing else. So 20% time you have to invest, that's with planning. And the same structure I will apply with the question of question 2 of the pre-mock here, where you will easily be able to get the guidance how the things should be executed with respect to the planning of 20% and execution. That means attack with the 80%. So let's start the question. The question Devonald Company, pre-mock December 24, question number 2, 20 marks. Let's start. Number 1, the first very important thing, make sure that you have already calculated that for 20 marks question, you have total 36 minutes. Very simple rule. You have total 180 minutes. 3 hours multiplied by 60, that's 180 minutes. Divide by 100, that's 1.8 minutes for each mark. For 20 marks, you have total 36 minutes. For 36 minutes, 20% time, that means 20% into 36, that's 8 minutes you have to invest for the planning. That's a key point. The first thing of the planning is reading. And the rule of the reading is 1, 1, 2, 3. What does that mean, 1, 2, 3, sir? 1, 2, 3 means first, for example, you open the window of the question. This is the window of the question. Number 1, you have to start reading from the main screen and the requirement. For example, this is the main screen. Devonald is a waste management company. Quickly read this. Waste management company. That's very much important. That waste management company. Develop your mindset. What is this case study about? What the industry about? Waste management company. So the company is about a waste management. So imagine it. You need to develop your imagination. That is a waste management company. It prepares its financial statement using IFRS and it has a financial year end 31st December X5. That's very much important for any question that you need to identify the reporting date. So 2 things important here. Number 1, the company, the industry, the relevant industry is about waste management. Pop up. That's imagination. The company is about waste management. Number 2, reporting date 31st December X5. Following exhibits available on the left hand side on the screen provides information relevant to the question. That is about purchase of land. Provides information about land purchase by Devonald during the year. And immediate after this main content, you have to read the requirement. You have to read the requirement. Now read the requirement. Using Exhibit 1 and accordance with IFRS, explain how the correct accounting treatment of land and associated cost in Devonald financial statement for the year end 31st December X5. Okay, this is the first time you are reading the requirement. This is number 1. Reading the main content, identify the industry, identify the year end, and quickly read the requirement. This is number 1. Number 2, A part, then P part. Using Exhibit 1. Using Exhibit 1, discuss the ethical issues arising from scenario and outline any action you should take to resolve this. So there are 2 things with this ethical matter. Number 1, ethical issue. Identify the ethical issue. Number 2, outline the actions. Action points. And action related to, here the term use, the noun use you. Outline any actions you should. Okay, that is 8 marks. And professional marks will be awarded in part B for the relevance of the ethical principles and actions identified. That is 2 marks. So I will give you the guidance here as well, that how you will be able to get these 2 marks. Don't worry about that. We will attempt this question in a manner not that you not become able to get the technical but also the professional marks. Okay, so this is first thing that's you need to do. That's requirement number 1. Sorry, that's about reading. Reading, point number 1. Quickly read the content, identify the industry, identify the reporting date, and quickly read the requirement and develop the mindset. It is something about the land, it is something about ethical issue and action points as well. Reading number 2. Now, based on this basic mindset, you have to read the content. Now, read the content. Jack is one of the team ACCA member in the financial reporting department at Devonald. She is involved in preparing financial statement for the year end 31st December X5. Okay, here is some personality. That's Jack. Year end 31st December X5. Ready for the arrival for external audit team. She has recently joined the company after several years working outside the accountancy profession. Okay, outside accountancy profession. So first thing here, that's a blink in your mind. If someone outside the accountancy profession since several years, so that means there must be a challenge about the professional competency, and is currently in a probationary period. Okay, the finance director, another role, finance director. First one Jack, another one finance director, who is also an ACC member, has asked Jack to review accounting entries relating to purchase of land. Okay, he told her that financial reporting team was short-staffed when the entries were made, and so he asked a student accountant to make them. However, the finance director was at a supplier hospitality event and was unable to supervise the student accountant. So another role, the student accountant. Finance director previously handed over the task to a student accountant, and finance director was busy with the hospitality event and unable to supervise the student accountant. That's something with respect to the ethics. It's something about non-professional attitude. It's a compromising of the professional due care. Okay, so it's something raw that needs to develop in your mind during the reading of the context. Okay, the student accountant has subsequently left Devonald, and no one has reviewed the entries. No one reviewed the entries, unreviewed. That means, based on this, if something become wrong, that's reflect on the final accounts. That's a very risky point. Devonald purchased the land on 1st May. Now the things start. Now the material starts about the accounting aspects. Devonald purchased land 1st May X5. 1st May X5 students, our year end 31st December X5. Our year end 31st December X5. The land had previously been used to quarry for slate. Land previously used to quarry for slate. Very important. Devonald acquired the land including quarry for use as a landfill site. You must have to aware that the company is about waste management company. So you need to develop your mindset. That's very much important. How to develop the mindset? Develop your mindset in this way. If it's a waste management company and the company purchased an area of land, the land is previously used for quarry for slate. So that means it's very norm for the waste management company to acquire the land in a manner that previously used that land for the quarry purpose. Here, previously used the land for quarry for slate. They actually extract the slate from the land, and the position of land is like that. So imagination is very much important. That's called understanding the context. And what Devonald do? Devonald purchased this land for landfill site. Landfill site. This is what the company Devonald do. That's a business. Purchase the land and use for landfill site. Okay. It's now the another point. It's part funded. Land is investment and the purchasing or the financing part funded the purchase and subsequent expenditure on the side using in the general borrowings. General borrowings. Here, something about borrowing cost. Okay. Between May and September, May, June, July, August, September, 5 months, Devonald incurred expenditure to line up the quarry to clay to prevent waste escaping into surrounding soils. Now they purchase the land and they are preparing the site or preparing the land as a position to start the business of the landfill. It also divide quarry into separate waste cells, each of which would be filled in turn with the household waste. It is expected that each cell will take 1 year before its fill. 1 year before its fill. Before it is full. Okay, Devonald operating license requires that waste cells must be capped once full and land restored to grassland. That's very much important. And this must take place as soon as cell is no longer in use and cost of capping each cell is $40,000. Actually, what this type of company do, they purchase the land or they arrange the land as a quarry used for landside fill and for actually before starting landside fill, they actually dividing all that land in a parts and then they start using to landside fill. For example, each part fills. That is about each part fills. Then they use for capping. And after capping all the cells, the land become grassy land. That is all about the business structure. Purchase the land as a quarry, used for landside fill, and dividing the quarry or dividing the land into the pieces and starting landfill wastages and one by one capping each sides, and at the end of the day the land become grassy land. This is the complete structure. So this type of imagination you need to develop in your mindset if you really want to understand the thing accordingly. So read the point once again. Devonald purchased land 1st May 5. The land had previously been used to quarry for slate. Devonald acquired land including quarry for use as a landfill site. Its part funded the purchase and subsequent expenditure on the site using general borrowings. Between May and September X5, which means 5 months, Devonald incurred expenditure to line the quarry with clay to prevent waste escaping in surrounding soil. It also divided quarry into 20 separate cells. 20 separate cells, each of which would be filled in turn with the household waste. it is expected that each cell will take 1 year. Each divided cell will take 1 year before it is filled. Devonald operating license requires waste cells must be kept once full and the land restored to grassland. So operating license required once the waste cells complete, and at least one cell need to complete for 1 year. That's mentioned in the previous paragraph of the last line. So that means operating license required for capping. That's at least you need 1 year time. This must take place as soon as cell is no longer in use, and the cost of capping each cell is $40,000. So this is what about the accounting situation. Further, Devonald, so the land structure is about this. So very important, you need to develop the mindset once you read the content or context of the question. Okay, Devonald started using the new landfill site on 1st October X5. When they are going to start, first purchase land, then preparing the land to become usage requires May to September, and from 1st October X5 they are able to use the landfill site. The student accountant recognized the landfill site at cost. Student accountant. This include now there at this point you must be very much cautious. Is this the right accounting treatment or the wrong? The purchase price of the land, the cost of lining the quarry, cost of dividing the quarry into cell, cost of lining, cost of dividing. Okay, lining and dividing is something about the land directly attributable cost, or the land it's become able to use. And they've also added the capping cost. Capping cost. What do you say? Capping cost, it's not incurred here. Capping cost will incurred once the one waste cell become completed and available for capping. That's required 1 year. So if I say that, if you ask to the student that at this point, at the start of the purchase of the land, is the company become liable to pay the cost of the capping cost? No, not at all. Not at purchase time. The company become liable for the operating cost once the time for the capping, and the first cap required at least a year. Okay. Student accountant wrote a note that stating that assets should not be depreciated. Oh, should not be depreciated because land is never depreciated. Okay, land is never depreciated. But if land acquired for a certain time, so there should be some system for the amortization. It's perfectly alright that land is never depreciated, but if land is used for a certain time purpose and acquired for a certain time purpose, then there's some concept related to the amortization. Okay. Next, Jack is unsure whether this is the correct treatment and has asked you who you are. Another noun, you, has asked you, her colleague, you as colleague, to help. So here, how much personality with this question? Jack, finance director, student accountant who has left the company, and you as a colleague of Jack, you are also part of this organization, and ask you, her colleague, to help, she has asked you not to tell the finance director that she needs your advice because she's worried that he will find out that she has not kept her knowledge of IFRS up to date. Oh, whatever the doubt with the first paragraph that Jack concerned about the professional competence here confirmed that she is not up to the date about the IFRS. Jack is concerned that finance director may ask her to leave company at the end of the probational period. So ethically, they are not professional competent. That's a highlighted issue of ethics. And ethically, they are, Jack is more concerned about the self-interest that's compromising the integrity or the objectivity. So that is about the context. So first read the main content, then basic requirement, then based on basic understanding, read the complete context. Third point, read the requirement once again. Using Exhibit 1 and in accordance with IFRS, explain the correct accounting treatment of land and associated cost in Devonald financial statement for the year end 31st December X5. That is 10 marks. This is something about accounting issue. And using Exhibit 1, discuss ethical issue. Here, discuss ethical issue arising from the scenario and outline any actions. What should be the action? An action is about which you should take. Action which you should take. That's important. And this ethics is about 8 plus 2, 10 marks. So number one, students, you must have to aware that make sure 20% time you have to invest. Number one, reading 1 to 3 means first requirement and main context, identify the reporting date and the industry and basic understanding. Number two, read the context carefully based on the requirement. And third, once again read the requirement and fix your mind. What is the requirement? Make sure once you read the thing, you have understand the context and requirement. Before starting, a moment you invest for 2 or 3 seconds, ask yourself, have you read the context and clearly understand the context and requirement? If your inner says yes, move on. Number 3, now very important point, brainstorming. Before starting the thing, the brainstorming. Number 1, time to attempt part A, landfill sites. Brainstorming. What are the key points that you need to develop based on these things, based on these content? That's 10 marks. Do remember, you have to draft your answer according to the marks. Number one, IS 16, cost of property, plant and equipment. Number 1. With the marking scheme, that is something about 2 marks. Number 2, IS 23, borrowing cost. IS 16, initial cost of property, plant, equipment. Number 2, IS 23, borrowing cost. Marking scheme, 3 marks. Number 3, here IS 16, depreciation issue. Number 4, here the matter of IS 37 and IS 16, that's about provision. So develop your mindset. Okay, I have to draft this question with on the basis of this scope of answer. So prepare your mind. There are 4 areas that I need to write it. Let's start. If you're going to draft the first one, IS 16, a moment you need to develop your mind. Yes, what I should write. First, I have to write about the knowledge of initial cost. Knowledge of I-16. What should be the part of the property plant equipment? You have to mention here the land is property plant equipment. And you have to put a one-liner, basic knowledge and the components of cost. And then add the case. Here the case purchase price. Here the case lining of the query. Yes, that is all about directly attributable cost. The cost required, the asset become able to use it. That's lining. Yes, it's a part of the cost. Waste cells. Preparing the waste cells. Yes, exactly. But capping cost, it's not the obligation here. So it's not the part of the initial cost. It's not the obligation at initial recognition of the asset. So if I am going to write the answer, or if you are going to write the answer, so here is about the answer. If we depict this part, that is about I-16, cost of property plant equipment, that's about 2 marks. Okay. So what should be the structure? Just a minute. Yes. Land site fill, initial measurement. The very first point, that's the knowledge. Land is property plant equipment. And I-16 states it should initially measured at cost, includes all the costs, bring it to its intended location and condition for use, an initial estimate of cost of decommissioning or restore. And if there is present obligation to do so as required by 37. This is what about the knowledge, and very particular for the case. That's called Devonald. Cost of land includes these 3 points that's mentioned here. And you have to mention the reason why the capping cost of 40,000 are not part of initial measurement cost. Because this is not the obligation at initial recognition of land. It's not the part of the initial measurement. Subsequently, we will discuss this point later. That's the first point for 2 marks. So the important point is that whenever you are writing some points, make sure you have already identified the key points. That's called brainstorming. Number 2, this is about the borrowing cost. What here we need to say about the borrowing cost? Number 1, here, first of all, about the borrowing cost, if the borrowing cost is related to qualifying asset. So here we need to mention that is the land here, the land purchase a query and requires 5 months to become landfill sites. So is this about the qualifying asset? Number 1. Number 2, if it's qualifying asset, in this case, yes, substantial period of time. Standard not mention the particular time, but here the 5 months, any of the assets should become ready for use, and that's required 5 months. That's a substantial period of time, and we can consider it as qualifying asset. The case study, number 1, here we need to mention landfill site is a qualifying asset. And here the borrowing cost, by the way, it's not specific, it's about the generic borrowings, general borrowings. And we have to mention the things about the capitalized cost. Here the capitalization cost is about weighted average rate of borrowing cost multiplied by expenditures. So how to write it? Let's write this answer. For example, these 4 points need to depict here. These 4 points. Now come on. IS 23, no need to mention the name. IS 23, that's all. No need to mention IS 23 borrowing cost. Requires that eligible borrowing cost on qualifying asset are recognized as part of the cost of the asset. It's a very basic generic statement. Now the case, land fill site qualifies as a qualifying asset. Under IS 23, because you need to mention the reason, it takes a substantial period of time to be ready for use, operational from 1st October 2005, 5 months. Devonald. So here you prove that, okay, it's a qualifying asset like that. Now about the borrowing cost, what to capitalize. Devonald has used general borrowings. It's mentioned in the case to fund the purchase and related expenditure and development or related expenditure of the landfill site. And should calculate, it's all my own wordings and you can use your own wordings, and should calculate borrowing cost by applying a weighted average interest rate to the borrowing used for the, or to the expenditures. You can use the term expenditures for the landfill site. So you have covered 3 points: knowledge, then prove that landfill site is a qualifying asset. Number 3, borrowing cost, that's general borrowing, and the capitalized cost. Now the last point, capitalize borrowing cost incurred from 1st May 2005, that is start of the expenditure, to 30th September 2000X5 that is ready for use. So that is a point of the borrowing cost. Second point, after borrowing cost, based on your original plan, you have to write something about the depreciation. What is about depreciation? You have to mention that depreciation is always attempt or calculate based on using the economic benefit. An economic benefit, it's based on consumption. And here the consumption based on waste fills the cells. And here the question is very particular. That's 20 cells. It's very particular, 20 cells. 20 separate cells, base cells. And each cell required 1 year. So that means 20 years. So here you can prove that depreciation must be based on 20 years. Land has indefinite life, but you have arranged the land for the 20 years. That's proved here. So that means you need to depreciate the initial cost over the 20 years. And these points you need to portray, you need to depict on your answer. And that is about the answer. Land is typically not depreciated. However, the land side economic benefit are consumed as waste fills the cells. Therefore, depreciate the landfill side over 20 years, starting from 1st October. And where need to start? When the land is available for use. That's the operational date. And with this particular year, from 1st October till 31st December X5, you need to depreciate 3 months expense only and charge to the operational cost. Next, you need to develop a mindset. The provision. If you are reporting your financial statement, then what about the capping cost? We have already covered that capping cost. It's not the parts of the initial cost, but the operations has started from 1st October, November, December. 3 months has gone. So 3 months has gone means the company has started to put the waste, that's land side fill. That's called land side fill. And 3 months has gone at the date of the year end. 3 months. And for any one particular cell, that's required 12 months. So out of 12 months, 3 months has gone. So 3 over 12, that means 25% capacity is used. We must have to say that you have used one cell 25% capacity. So that means if you have used the 25% capacity, so now for operating license, you are now become liable. First thing is that we need to make provision or not. Yes, I'm not saying make a provision and adjust. I'm not saying that credit the provision and debit to the asset. No, here credit the provision and debit to P&L. But the point is that at the reporting date, should we recognize the provision? The answer obviously yes. Because 3 months has gone, 25% capacity is used. But for IS 37 measurement of the provision, there are two possibilities. Number one, if there are multiple options, then use probability. If there is no multiple options, but only yes or no, if the things happen or not, you need to make provision only for one amount, single amount. So here we need to make a provision of all $40,000. All $40,000. You cannot make a provision of only 25%. No. First thing is that make a provision or not. Yes. Number two, measurement, the guidance by ICE 37. If there are multiple options of the cost, then you require the probability. And if there are two options, yes or no, then take out the one amount. That's here the 40,000. Here we will not apply the time value of money because the time it's only about the at the year end. Whatever the provision we will make, the provision will able to use after the year end. That's only required remaining 9 months. So 9 months not affect to the time value of money. And the provision income statement debit and provision credit. That's the point. So here to save the time, I have already some majority of the answers I've already written before. Based on the expected time, 1 year, a waste cell, one cell at the landfill site will be 25% capacity. By reporting date, a provision should therefore be recognized for the capping cost at this date. The full $40,000 capping cost should be recognized as a provision because the provision is not affected by the cell's capacity and cost does not vary. Or you can say that here only the one option of the cost. The provision is charged to operating expense, that's P&L. Discounting is unlikely unnecessary given the short time, that's 9 months until payments. So that is all about the 10 marks. So what you have learned here, this is not what's the difference of this answer I'm talking about here. The difference is that this is exactly not the model answer. Number one. Number two, this is actually not the answer, but also discussing the strategy you need to follow to attempt any answer. I hope that's become valuable for you. Let's move for another point. Ethical issue. Ethical issue. Ethical issue. Now the part B, the requirement of the part B. So students, I know that you people are very much concerned how to handle the ethical issues with exam question. I will try my best to provide you the best support how to handle the ethical issue and you become able to able to become not only the technical marks but also the professional marks. Here the technical marks 8 and number 2 professional marks, total 10 marks. Students, considering this particular case, if A requirement it's particular about the accounting and B is about the ethics, so I must say go back to the requirement and read once again and make sure that you have understand the requirement very clearly. Because if you are not able to understand the requirement in context, it's not possible that you portray or depict your answer accordingly. So very first thing is about clearly understand the requirement. So what's the requirement? Using exhibit 1, discuss ethical issue arising from scenario and outline any actions which you should take to resolve this. So what's the requirement about? Ethical issues within the scenario. Number 2, actions. Actions, not you don't need to suggest the actions with respect to finance director or Jack. Here, examiner asks the actions you should take to resolve this. And you, the colleague of Jack, you, the part of the organization, Devonald. So, first of all, if this is something about 8 plus 2, 10 marks question, you need to split your answer in 2 parts. First, ethical point, you need to work out for the ethics. That's what the issue related to ethics here, and another part is about the action. I suggest to my students that you need to identify the key points, or you need to develop some steps whenever you are brainstorming. Here I suggest to develop your mind, identify the key points, or in fact depict your answer, present your answer with 3 steps. Step number 1, identify the problem. Step number 2, ethical concern. Step number 3, action points. Even at this point of time, if you feel that I have to read the content once again, you must do it. First, you need to jot down, identify the problem. You will be able to get 2 marks. Number 2, with these problems, what are the ethical concerns here? Number 3, the action points. 2, 4, 4. This is what about marking scheme. So first thing, the first very important thing, identify the problem. Identify the problem. Students, very simple. First, always pick the thing with the simple way. No? What the simple thing? The problem related to 2 personalities. Number 1, finance director. Number 2, Jack, a new hired ACCA member. One by one. Develop your mindset. Make a para about the problems. If I say problem, what's the problem with reference to the finance director? So you need to develop your mindset. The finance director assigned a trainee accountant or student accountant to record a complex transaction of the purchase of land and the related expenditures. The first thing, this is a problem. Assign the task to the trainee accountant for a complex situation. And the finance director, second ethical concern, the problem, failed to supervise the student. Here, I am not talking about the ethical concern. Here, the very first paragraph you need to write what's an issue. So here issue, and the second step you need to extract the ethical concern. First point, number 1, with respect to the finance director, the very two specific point, assign a complex transaction to a trainee accountant and failed to supervise the transaction. And in fact, another important point is that the priority of hospitality over supervision. That's a concern point. Number 2, Jack. What's the problem with respect to the Jack? Jack is a newly ACCA hired ACCA member, okay? But what the problem? The problem is the reviewing the transactions where Jack is unaware about the IFRS. And Jack is more concerned about her job, rather than the professional competence, or rather than to communicate or having a fair, that if convey the point to the finance director, that's become jeopardize her position. So this is what a threat factor. So whatever the point is, you need to portray these problems over the answer. Let's start. Part B, the problem. It's not about ethical issue. Only mention the problem. For example, if I mention here, Devonald finance director also an ACCA member. So do we need to mention this word? Do we need to mention it? Yes, obviously. Because question particular, because if you emphasize the ACCA member, so ethical principles, he is compelled to obey the ethical guidelines, ethical principles. Also an ACCA member assigned a student accountant to record a complex transaction. For the purchase of land and related expenses for a new land site, landfill site. Number one. Number two, the finance director, or you mentioned, he also failed to supervise the student who has since left company and leaving incorrect transaction. And even you can mention that here finance director also prioritize the hospitality over the supervision. Number two, Jack, a newly hired ACCA member, is still on probation. Is now asked with review these entries or these transactions, but feels unsure about the correct treatment under IFRS. With the first identification, the problem, here we are not discussing anything about the ethical point. But after identification of the problem, we will extract the ethical issue with these problems. She is hesitant to seek help for fear of of jeopardizing her position. So jeopardizing her position with respect to hesitance, it's very dangerous element here. The first thing is, this is what about the problem. Number two, and with this simple aspect, you just able to get 2 marks. Now the problem about ethical. Now the problem is about ethical point. Now what's the ethical concern? Number one, finance directors, 2 marks. What are the ethical concerns? Number one, assigning complex tasks to unsupervised student, prioritizing hospitality even over supervision. Now you need to connect the things. Failing to review the entries afterwards, that's a lack of professional behavior. Now with this para, you need to connect your identified problems with threats and effect to the principle of the ACC principle of the ethics. How to write the answer? In this way. In this way. Ethical concern. The first point. One by one. The first point is you will start with this line. Both the finance director and Jack are ACC members and have a duty to comply with ACC Code of Ethics and Conduct. First, once you brainstorm your point, okay, this is point, what about the lack of professional behavior? You can make a heading like this: finance director lacks of professional behavior. Just connect the dots. Connect these points. Assigning complex accounting tasks to unsupervised student, prioritizing a corporate hospitality even over supervision, and a failing to review the entries afterward demonstrate a lack of professional behavior and professional competence in due care on the finance director part. This behavior reflects poorly the professionalism and could lead to material misstatement in the financial statement. You can draft the answer in this way. But first, you need to identify the points. Second point, based on problem, Jack, 2 marks. Accepting the review task, but the lack of the knowledge of IFRS. Prioritize job security over professional responsibility. Prioritizing the job security over professional responsibility. That's lack of professional competence and integrity. That is the point. Accepting new task despite lack of updated knowledge of IFRS and prioritizing job or security over professional responsibility indicates lack of professional competency and due care. Make a heading, Jacks. If you identify the things at the initial phase, you can make a heading, Jack's lack of professional competency and integrity. But need to prove that. Why? This could lead to incorrect accounting treatment and undermines the reliability of the financial reporting process. This lack of adherence to ethical principle by Jack appears to directly result self-interest and threat to objectivity, where Jack is worried she may be asked to leave Devonald at the end of the at the end of the probation period. That's a point. So that's about the ethical concern. Until now, you now become able to get 6 marks. Now, the point is about action points, final points. Action, which you action which you should take to resolve these. Number one, here you need to write answer about the actions. And actions, examiner not asking the actions which finance director should take, which Jack should take. No, you should take to resolve these issues. You as colleague, and here Jack ask you as her colleague. So you are a part of organization, colleague of Jack. So you should how you should take to resolve these matters. So you have to write answer with respect to you as accountant, as a colleague. What points need to consider here? What action points? You need to develop a mindset. So that means you as a professional accountant, what you should do. So you need to spread answer in 2 points. Number one, Jack. You can resolve these matter with respect to Jack. Number one, assess Jack. Assess Jack. Number one, what you should write? I should help her to review the complex task. Like this. Action point. Assess. As a colleague of Jack, I should help her to review the accounting transactions or entries made by the student accountant in order to complete the task. It's a journal point at hand and allow the financial statement to progress. That's very simple. Number one, assess Jack. Number two, assist the Jack for the transaction. Support the Jack. Support the Jack. I should advise her to complete the CPD trainings, continuous professional development trainings, and IFRS updates. I should encourage her to share her position to finance director that you are not updated with IFRS. And at last, if Jack is not cooperating with you, you can escalate your you should escalate this point to the upper management. So support the Jack like this. You can write the answer. I should advise Jack to complete the technical updates and CPD trainings in order to update her knowledge of IFRS, and I should encourage her to share her position with finance director and other members or upper management of financial reporting team so that they can support her in his they can support her in this. And last, escalate if necessary. Escalate means if Jack does not agree to undertake technical update training or disclose the position about the lackness of knowledge, I should discuss with her immediate line manager in order to avoid further situations in which accounting function might be compromised and errors might be made in the financial statement. That's the point with respect to the Jack. Another one to the finance director. What I should do as a part of the company for the finance director. Number one, address the position to the finance director, means communicate with the finance director. I should point out that it is inappropriate and unfair to rely student accountant for complex tasks. That's all. And escalate if necessary. Escalate if necessary. Finance director. Address the finance director. In respect of the finance director, I should point out that it is inappropriate and unfair to rely on the staff members to complex work which they are not qualified to do. Number one, address the finance director. Escalate if necessary. If finance director is unwilling to accept this, I should discuss this matter with the other board members, audit committee, or contact with the ECC helpline. But one very important point, and you need to write with every question. That's document all communications, either with the finance director or with Jack. I should keep a record of all conversations. You have to mention this point with both Jack and finance director in case the matter needs to be taken further, means if the matters needs to be taken further means needs to escalate, and that is the way you need to attempt your 20 marks question. The end. Students, the very important point I must say here, always try to attempt question, based on this rule 2080. Do remember my point. Important is not that how much quantity you are practicing before the exam. The important point is that how much qualitative practice you are attempting before the exam. Quality matters, and the quality means 2080. First 20% time, collectively 20% time for reading with the rule of 1, 2, 3, understanding, and whenever you are attempting the question, simultaneously brainstorm and attempting the question accordingly. The solution I have mentioned here, I will share with a PDF file with you people that you are watching my YouTube video. Just refer the description part of the video. Just click the link. You will be able to find this particular PDF file. That is the one thing. Now the students, agenda number 2, as I promised at the start of the session, I will give you the material that's called SBR Easy 20 Marks. Don't worry about that. Just refer below the description part of this video. You will not just able to find the suggestive answer of Devonald, but also the material of SBR 20 Easy 20 Marks. Just click the link and follow the instruction of the second document. Just click the link and follow the instructions of the second document. You will find the SBR Easy 20 Marks material. You just invest 5 to 6 hours more. You will be able to easily get 20 easy marks. So that's all about this session of the SBR Power Ups. Stay in touch, subscribe my YouTube channel. You will be able to get more valuable insights. If you really find that this session is important for you, do comment about this video. If you comment, we will be able to develop more things accordingly. Thank you very much. Take care a lot. Assalamu alaikum.